Hello and welcome to the Unusual Stories podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski. I'll be your host for today, as per usual. And before we start, may I just say, great to be back. It's been a while, I know. I hope that you've been good with your habits and with your little activities. I hope that your summer was as good or potentially even better than the Scottish one. And maybe before we start as well, if you remember, if this is your first time, then please do so. Please make sure to follow the podcast or share it with a friend. It helps me amazingly. It allows us to reach more people. And ultimately, if you do think that these ideas and books that we discuss here and thoughts that we exercise are valuable for you and those around you, then please do support in any way you can. And so you can find alternative ways of supporting in the link below. Otherwise, please do share it with the world. And hopefully by that, those around you will be able to explore what we've been talking about for the past 169 today episodes. So without further ado, I'll just give you a brief update before I jump into the main few topics of our monologue today. So, as you might remember, I've been away from recording for a while. I've been enjoying some well-deserved rest for holidays, as well as I've been working on my dissertation. I'm handing it in tomorrow, so it's basically it's done. I've been working on a project that was related to that, so that was really exciting, and I'm looking forward to see what the results of this work of mine will be. And I don't know if you know, but there is a fringe festival happening in Edinburgh, which is basically apparently the biggest art and all kinds of entertainment festival in Europe. And so me and my friends and my girlfriend, who's staying with me for the past few weeks, have been attending some of the shows, and some of them are comedy, some of them are a bit more serious in nature. There is plenty of theater and musicians and performances on the street. So the festival vibe really does bring up more sort of energy into Edinburgh, so I've been enjoying that as well, and we're hoping to see some shows yet up until the end of next week when the festival actually ends. And finally, I don't know if you remember, but I'll be starting a full-time job in one of the big four companies in the coming weeks, so actually from September. But do not worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be recording my podcast as per usual. I might just be a bit more quiet on social media, but quite frankly, that's beside the point, right? Because if you are listening to this, then you're already a part of this growing network of community of unusual stories lovers and book worms of all kinds. And if you are not, then good for you that you're here, and then please do follow, subscribe, and so forth. But for the most part, I find that advertising the podcast out there only goes so far. It's not my major goal currently to go that much farther with it, so I don't mind. It's great if someone sees us, that's amazing. If they don't, it's also okay. There's plenty of amazing content out there anyway, and so I might just be a little bit more quiet on social media in the months to come because of my new job and new chapter in life. Now, in terms of what we're going to talk about today, I prepared for you 4 major ideas that I'd like to share with you, which stem from some experiences and thoughts that I've had over the past few weeks. And I also will share with you the plan, more or less, a sketch maybe, of the upcoming season which will be yet again book reviews of all kinds. And I do truly believe this might be the best yet. Let us hope so. Let's see what happens. But I've been avidly reading and sort of trying to figure out which of those books you guys might like. And, knowing the rates at which some of my episodes are being listened to, I've decided that this season in particular will be dedicated to the works of one author in particular. And so I'll talk about that in a second. Now, in terms of the 4 topics, that sort of 4 invitations that this monologue will be about, I would like to start by emphasizing to the max, maximally emphasizing habits. I know, you've heard it from me multiple times, and if you haven't, then you will. But I cannot stress enough how important and how powerful habits and developing good ones and getting rid of the bad ones can be. And, I was thinking, where should I start, right? Because it's been holidays. Many of you are probably listening to it while still on holidays. And I was thinking, well, maybe give them a break, right? Don't jump straight into the deep end. But I do believe it's important, right? So even though for the past few weeks, months really, I've been having much more free time after hours doing things with either my friends or my family or my girlfriend that allow me to relax and sort of recuperate and enjoy, I do not allow myself to fall back too much with my habits. And I'm talking especially of those 3 types of habits that relate to health, right? Whether it is about the mental health, physical health, or spiritual health. I think allowing yourself to procrastinate or to sort of, leave behind or to the side your good habits that allow your body, mind, and soul to feel enriched and healthy and empowered, in the long run is a very bad strategy. Because beyond this holiday comes the next one, and hopefully, tens of those holidays to come. While it may be beneficial in the short term to, allow yourself once or twice in the week just to go with the flow and enjoy the holiday vibe. If you allow yourself that too long, first of all, you're sort of straining your habit muscle. So whatever we don't do tends to deteriorate over time, right? If you've ever attended the gym for some time and then suddenly you've decided, oh, all right, I'll take a break because of whatever, you know that after a certain time, your muscles will start to diminish, will start to become smaller. And this is not only about your muscles in physical sense, it's also about your muscles in mental and spiritual sense. So, it's very easy to not do an activity that takes 10 minutes to do. For example, it's very easy not to find the moment in your day to read for 10 minutes. It's very easy as well not to find the moment in your day to stretch, maybe for 10 minutes. And yet again, it's very easy to not find the moment in your day to pray or to write down a few things you're grateful for, or just to think about matters greater than your life. And it's also easy to do those things. And I know that obviously laziness and procrastination are definitely out there, especially in holiday time when you can really enjoy the sun and potentially a glass of some great drink that you prefer. But I do believe that it would be beneficial for all of us if we take care of ourselves first. Maybe early in the morning as you wake up, straight away take care of those three, areas of your health, and then get on and enjoy your day. And most importantly, this will allow your habit to stay with you, because otherwise it will slowly but surely disappear. And that's a risky business. I remember the cycles that I've been through, especially throughout my sort of youth, when I was in high school and secondary school, when even though I was always a very diligent student and very sort of achievement oriented, quite dutiful, conscientious person, I would allow myself through those 3 months of constant holiday, I would allow myself to completely lose a routine. And so every school year, I would have to yet again sort of reinvent the wheel by establishing habits to begin with and by developing a certain circadian rhythm, by allowing myself to stop with the silliness of holidays and to get back into the mood of study and work. And first of all, I don't want it to be a prison for yourself, right? We've talked about that multiple times. Your schedule is your own. Of course, you have to go to work, and maybe to some degree you cannot choose when are you at work, but time outside of work is yours to choose and to sort of arrange and to manage as you wish. And so acknowledging that and allowing yourself to develop a routine that fits you, even if it is as small as 30 minutes in the morning, maybe you just have to wake up slightly earlier to do them, it will allow you in the long term to benefit from the benefits of those habits, and especially health-related ones, I think, are really long-term focused. It's a sort of a choice between enjoying yourself now and regretting tomorrow, or regretting right now that you have to wake up and do it, but enjoying yourself in the long term, for the long term. And I do truly believe that in terms of health, it's a long game we are playing, unless for whatever reason you're not planning to be on this planet for much longer. So I just wanted to remind you with this little monologue that even though you are on vacation and even though you might be slacking a little bit with some of your activities, it is beneficial to have those few that really resonate with your values and really empower your health, whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual, that allow you to be better off in the long run. Because you are playing a long game, and you're playing a game with yourself, with those choices you make on the daily basis. So, it's just a little invitation to recall that, to remind yourself about it, and maybe also restart it, because we are 2 weeks or potentially 6 weeks away, depending when do you start your uni year, school year, or work year again, from starting the grind, so to speak, again. I know I am. And thanks to being able to maintain the majority of my well-being habits over these holidays, 70%, most of them, because obviously I did have days when I did not wake up early enough to do something, or I did have days when I've skipped some training because I felt a bit under the weather. But for the most part, 70% of the time, I do those things that allow me to stay healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. For myself, as I've mentioned to you before, I do a little bit of breathing in the morning and some meditation. I pray sometimes, these days, every day really. I do some yoga. Potentially I'll go for a gym training if I have time. And obviously I try to make time for it. And then I read. I try to read for 30 minutes a day. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But these activities over time allow me to maintain my mind sharp, my soul filled with joy and peace, and my body strong and flexible, ultimately. So yeah, my first little sort of nudge for you, my dear listener, is to recall what habits, or think what habits are important for you, and slowly but surely, day by day, keeping with them or getting back to them if you've been slacking off a little bit. Now, secondly, I would like you to set yourself up for success with this. And this is really closely intertwined with those habits, because ultimately what you do most of the time, you become, right? If you were to spend 70% of your time over the weeks at the gym, unless you're doing something completely wrong, you will likely increase your strength, your muscle mass, and ultimately become a sort of a beast, if you will. But the point here is that whatever we do and whatever we think about most of the time, we do become. And so you need to set yourself up for success by creating a sort of a plan. Maybe first ask yourself, what do you value? What are your values? What is your philosophy? Because according to Tony Robbins and many such sort of, let's say, personal development gurus, what you value, what is your philosophy of life, really does define the way you act, right? So even though you might be saying, oh, I want to work out more because I want to be fit, but your philosophy of life encircles and sort of gravitates towards constant parties and drinking, then whatever you will be doing that 1 or 2 day in a week, on that 1 or 2 day in a week basis, for the most part, because your philosophy is focused on the parties and hedonism and self-indulgence, you will again and again fall back into those patterns that facilitate that space. So you really need to think, what drives me? What's the most important thing for me? What is my priority? Is my priority health? Is my priority making more money? Is my priority having loads of fun? Is my priority sleeping? It can be anything. I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying, realize what your priorities and philosophy of life is. And because of those things, you will choose certain strategies and certain plans. And now, to set yourself up for success, you really do have to plan in advance. And I feel there are 2 moments in the year, for me personally, that are most plan efficient, maybe plan focused. The first one is obviously the end of the year and the beginning of the new year. And I like that time especially because that's the time when everyone else is talking about their sort of plans and goals for the next year and wishes. And so because our, let's say, cumulative community psyche focuses on that topic, it's easier for me to also facilitate that discussion with myself. But since you know already that I've been following a certain goal-focused strategy over the past few years already, I do have plans in place for the years to come. They are changing, they're constantly in flux, but for the most part, I know what I'm aiming for in the long run. And I would urge you to, if you don't yet, to figure out that for yourself. Second greatest moment for me to do a plan, to make a plan, to set yourself up for success, to make a goal, to make a mission statement maybe, is before starting something new. So for example, right now I'm about to start a new job. Because of it, there will be many changes in my life, right? I will suddenly be working at the office, probably 9 hours a day. I won't be able to work remotely, but I will also not have studies, so I will not have to go to uni. I will have to change my schedule in terms of my jiu-jitsu and let's say gym training, and I will have new spaces, new people, new relationships to develop, foster, and work with. Because of these things, it's a very exciting and also quite daunting in many ways space, right? I'm starting something new. But it's a great moment for me to get myself a new piece of a notebook, let's say, or a calendar, a schedule, and figure out, review my values, review my priorities, review my goals for the coming 12, 24, 36 months, and through the lens of those plans and goals and ideas and my philosophy, arrange my life to fit this new era, this new chapter, right? And so I'm not saying you're also starting a new chapter right now, maybe you're not, but it is highly likely that some of you will be starting uni, maybe the uni year, or maybe some of you are just finishing your uni and starting a job, and maybe some of you are going to retire soon, or whatever else it is. If there is a change in your life happening, it's a great moment, in my opinion, to set yourself up for success in the next stage. And you can use the information you've acquired and planned out for yourself earlier as a starting point for the sketches that you're creating for your future. That's what I'm doing. So, I've been having this notebook for a while now. I had a few of them by now, which basically, as I showed you before, is a sort of a calendar mixed with some tasks-oriented and well-being-oriented plan. And I have my goals written there, but because I'm starting a new position in a new job, those goals might change slightly, right? I will have a little bit less time in the day to write, but maybe I'll have more time to develop some skills at work. So I'm thinking, what skills can I develop at work? Is there anything I could focus on while I'm going in this new direction? And really, the third thing that I like to add here is that by preparing, planning, and achieving things, you can become the hero of your own story. And I know it's a cliche, right? It sounds like, oh my God, Wojtek, what are you saying? That's cringe. It does make me cringe sometimes, but at the same time, I think it's really true. I've had this discussion recently with one of my friends who's struggling slightly with their dissertation project because they've accepted to do a project on a topic that they didn't really choose. They allowed their supervisor to choose that project for them. And it reminded me of this idea that you're either the hero in your movie or you become a sort of a side role in someone else's movie. So in moments when you abandon your decision making by allowing others to dictate what you do, you're allowing others to later on sort of construct your life, your paradigm, right? So in terms of these ideas, I think it's really powerful to know what your values and your philosophy and your goals are, because then you can prepare, plan, and achieve that which you find important, right? So whether it is starting a new project or whether it is starting a new chapter in your life, begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey says in his 7 Habits for Highly Effective People book. Really think of where you want to go and work back from that end goal. How are you going to get there? And of course, this might change over time, and maybe the goal itself might change. Some of my aspirations from 5 years ago are not really my aspirations nowadays. One good example is I wanted to be a content writer and a journalist, and for some time I was. But by now, because of all the AI usage in content writing, I don't think it's a valuable space for me to pursue a career. I just see how ChatGPT allows people to do what I did much quicker, with much more ease, and they can basically copy paste and have it done with, in 10-15 minutes, whereas it took me around an hour to write that same article. And so that goal, however romantic it may sound still, is no longer on my list of goals, simply because it became obsolete with the emergence of, widespread use of AI for content writing. Now, one quote that I wanted to cite here is from the Principles book by Ray Dalio, and I've already mentioned it to you before, especially in the context of money and sort of financial security. It is hanged above my desk, among many other quotes and ideas that I sort of surround myself with. It says, if you don't worry, you have to worry. But if you do worry, you don't have to worry. And I think this really emphasizes this part that I've been talking about, which is preparation and plan. So you can achieve, but also sort of secure yourself, hedge your bets against the unforeseen, likely and unlikely potential problems that you might encounter, and challenges. So basically, how I understand this quote is, if you think of things in advance and you worry about them, so you put things in place to mitigate the risk of them, you don't have to worry, right? Because you are secure. It's like you checked and you have your seatbelt on and then you start driving. But instead, if you do not worry about those things, if you sort of maybe willfully become blind to them, or simply you don't know that you should think about them so you don't, you are risking that you have not fastened your seatbelt while you're already driving. And, this is not to say that you should or shouldn't drive with seatbelts fastened. That's totally beside the point. It's rather a portrayal of this idea, right? If you have a way of securing yourself into the future, maybe even just by considering, what would I do if I lost my job tomorrow? Or what would I do if that university does not accept me? Do I have a plan B? Do I know what would I do if tomorrow I would, break a leg? And I'm not, this is not to say that you should overwhelmingly think about the potential downfalls, pitfalls, and problems in your life. I think that's very unhealthy to do it sort of in a major way. But if you do consider these from time to time, and if you plan a sort of contingency plan as it is in military or in industry, you can allow yourself to be safer, right? You sort of hedge against your bets. You allow yourself to be safe if something happens, when it happens. And I think this is really important when you do those plans, right? Let's be honest, you're not going to stick to your habits 100% of the time, right? The question is, what are you going to do if you stick to them only 10% of the time? Is there something you can do to make your early morning routine more likely to succeed? Maybe by turning off your phone into a flight mode when you sleep and not using your phone for the first hour in your day, you're hedging yourself against checking social media instead of doing that morning workout or reading that you've promised yourself to do. Maybe by leaving your phone on silent and in another room when you're meeting with your spouse for dinner will allow you to have more meaningful and present conversation with that person you love, and therefore mitigate the risk of the phone distracting you and causing a negative feeling between the two of you. So, these are the more trivial phone related, but I wouldn't say they're that trivial ideas, but this can be done in any other area of your life. There are things that will likely affect your performance if you don't look at them first and plan what to do not to let them happen. A good example is me recording a podcast right now. I live with a flatmate, and currently I also have my girlfriend here who's working. And because of that, I know there might be some noise happening outside the door when I'm recording. So what do? I mitigate against it, right? My girlfriend knows that I'm recording a podcast right now. I met my friend who just went to the kitchen to get some food earlier on, and I told him as well that I'm going to be recording for the next hour or so. And so I've mitigated against this noise. Obviously, if suddenly, I don't know, a fire alarm starts, that's not something I can mitigate against. I will have to accept it, probably press pause and maybe do some editing. But for the most part, the likelihood of that happening is much smaller than my flatmate deciding to put on some music as he showers. So these are the things that we can do. And if there are things you can do to mitigate and be more secure in your plan, then do it. A good way of avoiding eating sugar is not to buy sugary sweets in the first place. This is something I'm trying to do every day because I know that these sweets are not good for my skin. So, I practice the idea that I just don't buy sweets. I try not to, and for the most part I manage, and if I do, that's okay. Sometimes we also fail, right? Finally, I'd like to talk for a moment about doing a good job. And, I want to put it in a broader perspective. This does not only apply to your uni, to your work, or to your projects per se. I think in many ways it applies to anything you do. There is this radical idea that how you do one thing, you do everything. And while I think I could sort of argue against that idea to a degree, I think it's a good thought to have in mind, because in its extreme, it allows us to really review within ourselves how we think we do. And that's a good self-reflection in itself, even if it isn't based on the idea that we fully agree with. So, first of all, for context, where did this come from, right? Like, I don't know if you remember, but we've had an episode, I think it was a monologue as well, I'm not sure. We've had an episode in which I talked about being reliable and sort of doing a good job, especially in uni context, because what I've observed throughout my year at university over the past year when I did my master's is that for the most part people around me did not study. They didn't take notes, they didn't pay attention. Overwhelming majority of people didn't show up in the second semester pretty much at all. They didn't have any notes to study with, so many people actually approached me at some point to ask for notes, and I've seen multiple times people just watching TikTok or Instagram as the lecturer is talking, which I find utterly useless, like literally wasting your life. And money, because they've definitely paid some money like I did to be at that university. What I do want to say here, though, is that I do believe being reliable and doing a good job in any area of your life will ultimately benefit you in the long run. And it doesn't mean it will directly make you a millionaire or whatever your goal is, but I found it again and again being so stupendously easy and also so surprisingly unpopular that I thought I'll share it with you here. I've been doing my dissertation, right? The dissertation project takes around 3 months. I've been participating in an experimental, more practical focused project. And so our project, let's say, timeline was actually 2 months. And the deadline is actually in 3 weeks, but I'm planning to hand it in tomorrow and have it done and dusted. Now, obviously, this is just my choice, so I can have 2 weeks of somewhat more leisurely space before I start my work. But what I found and what I learned from my supervisor and those around me academic-wise is that majority of students also in the practical project are not even halfway through by now. And obviously they have less time now till the end than half. There is also one student apparently who said 1 week ago that she doesn't know what she's supposed to do, so she didn't even start yet. And obviously, maybe she's struggling so much that she doesn't know. My personal opinion is that's just procrastination, because there are many things you can try to do to realize what works and what doesn't, even without other person telling you what to do and what not to do. And I think a big part of being mature is just accepting the responsibility and doing what you said you would, right? This is the integrity and the reliability part, which I think really many young people apparently lack in our day and age. And I've heard in a few different podcasts recently, especially when talking about business related sort of areas, people that don't keep their word, people that tell you they will do something and they don't, do not go far. And this is not to discourage you if you did that before. This is to encourage you not to do that again. And you can start small, a good strategy, I guess, is to under-promise and over-deliver. But the key word here is deliver, right? If I promised I will get this 3,000 words project to you by the end of next week, I will get you that project by the end of next week. Maybe it turns out it's 5,000 words instead of 3,000 words. So I over-delivered a little bit, which is great because it will signal to you that, wow, this guy actually does even more than he's asked to do. But the key thing is, I will not allow myself to be late with that deadline in mind. And I think if you apply this as a rule of thumb, by default, I don't say yes to things I will not do. And by default, I will do the things I said I will do. Just by this one rule that you introduce to your life, I think, you can make great progress in whatever area that you're working on. Whether it's at your uni that you're about to start, or at work that you're about to start, or with your relationship that is going on or about to start, whatever that is, become the kind of person that people can rely upon. And we've talked about that before. I just sort of wanted to reinforce it because this is something that got highlighted to me over the past few weeks as I was told I'm an outstanding student. And I really don't think I am. I think that just I'm doing what I said I will. And therefore, it turns out I'm outstanding because for whatever reason, many people don't. And it worries me. And just wanted to share it with you because I don't wish upon you to be perceived like those around me were by my supervisor and by the module director or whoever else, because I think that's just really bad. So yeah, that's the idea here, do a good job. Under promise, over deliver, great, but be a man, a woman of your word. Period. If you said you're gonna do something, do it. And do it with yourself as well, because it is proven that If we keep a promise to ourselves, we strengthen our self-esteem. And if we break a promise to ourselves, we feel the guilt and shame within ourselves, even if no one else knows it. And I know you do know it when you do, because you do have a conscience like everyone else. Now, finally, before I wrap up and give you a little invitation for the coming week, I would like to mention that basically, after seeing how many of you loved the episode about Letting Go book by David Hawkins, and the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which is actually the highest rated episode in the whole of my podcast on Spotify, I thought that maybe we'll dedicate this series of the season of books to the writings of David Hawkins and a selection of books that I also have been engaging with that might be beneficial in regards to what we've discussed today. So the books that I'm planning to prepare for you, apart from the few such as Power versus Force or The Eye in the Eye by David Hawkins, there will also be a few different ones, which are The Sovereign Individual, The Prince by Machiavelli, which is an interesting and slightly different, I would say, approach and idea to what we usually discuss here, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a book that I've been working with for the past few weeks and that I've read before, but sort of thought I'll reread it, and I think that's very beneficial for us going forward. I will also have a few surprise books for you, but for the most part, we'll try to focus on the spiritual and the self-oriented development of books out there. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. And if you do have any recommendation for a book I should read and review, then please do not hesitate to reach out. You can send me an email or comment underneath this episode, and I will see whether that's something we could exercise. Now, finally, my invitation for you, my dear listener, apart from obviously, developing those plans, ideas, and habits that we've talked about, is to think for a moment what one activity you could do that would have the greatest impact on your life over the coming weeks. Health-wise, career-wise, self-development-wise, hobby-wise, relationship-wise, whatever that activity is, whatever that thing, I don't know, whether it's I should really start stretching, or I should really start getting up earlier, or I should really start reading, whatever that is, think about it. What would be the activity that would have the greatest impact on your life? And then engage in a habit related to that activity for at least 30 days, starting from tomorrow. It can be very little to start with. It can be very little over the whole run, but it's really important that you stick to it, because what it will do is it will allow you to prove to yourself that you can stick to such a habit, that you can keep your own promise, so you become more reliable to yourself. And it will also establish a certain routine, which in turn will empower other habits in your routine going forward. It's really an avalanche of benefits that you can reap from just one action repeatedly done because you think it's valuable for you. So yeah, I hope you will do it. If you do, please let me know what you've decided. Comment below what is the activity you're going to pick up, and I'm looking forward to hearing all the positive benefits that came out from it. So yeah, other than that, as I said, great to be back. Thank you so much for your patience and for listening to this podcast. I hope we've shared some wonderful and useful information here, and it's been a pleasure as per usual. Other than that, have a wonderful week. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.